The night was dark, and the road stretched out like an endless abyss. I drove through the desolate countryside. The only sound was the eerie hum of the engine and the occasional rustling of leaves in the wind. It was the kind of night where you could feel the weight of the darkness pressing down on you, suffocating and inescapable. I had taken this route before, but tonight was different. The air was thick with an unnatural stillness, and an unsettling feeling of dread had settled over me. My heart raced, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me from the shadows. As I rounded a bend in the road, I caught a glimpse of something in my rearview mirror. A pair of glowing, malevolent eyes stared back at me, reflecting the dim glow of my taillights. Panic surged through my veins as I realized there was a car behind me, a car I hadn't seen before. It was an old, rusted-out sedan, and it was tailgating me relentlessly, its headlights blinding me. I sped up, hoping to lose the menacing vehicle, but it matched my speed, never letting me out of its sight. Fear gnawed at the edges of my sanity as I realized there was no one else on the road, no one to help me if things went south. I dialed 911, my voice trembling as I described the situation to the dispatcher. "Just stay on the line with me," the dispatcher said, trying to keep me calm. "We're sending a patrol car your way." But the old sedan wasn't giving up. It inched closer and closer, and I could now see the silhouette of the driver, a figure shrouded in darkness. I swerved and took a random turn onto a narrow dirt road in a desperate attempt to escape, my tires kicking up dust and gravel. The dispatcher continued to reassure me as I drove deeper into the darkness. The dirt road seemed to lead me into an even more remote and desolate area, and I felt a growing sense of dread. The old sedan was still behind me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had fallen into a trap. I begged the dispatcher to hurry, but the reply was muffled by static, and the call dropped. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized I was on my own. I had no choice but to keep driving, but the dirt road seemed to go on forever. The trees pressed in on all sides, their twisted branches clawing at the car as I pushed forward. Suddenly, my headlights illuminated something that made my blood run cold. A dilapidated, abandoned house loomed in the distance, surrounded by an overgrown garden. The sedan behind me had pulled to a stop, and I could see the driver's door slowly creak open. My instincts screamed at me to get out of there, but I was trapped on the narrow road. I made a split-second decision and floored the gas pedal, crashing through the garden and heading straight for the house. The old sedan roared to life and gave chase, but I reached the house first. I slammed the car into park, scrambled out, and sprinted toward the decaying structure. The sedan screeched to a halt behind me, its headlights cutting through the darkness. But I had made it to the front door. I pounded on it, praying for someone, anyone, to answer. The door swung open, and a stranger pulled me inside. I turned to see the driver of the old sedan, a sinister grin on their face. I had escaped the car, but the horror was far from over. The night was pitch black, and I was driving down a winding, desolate road. The only sound was the low hum of my engine. The darkness outside my car seemed endless. Tonight was different. An uneasy feeling gnawed at me, like I was being watched. Suddenly, a pair of blinding headlights appeared in my rearview mirror. A car came hurtling up behind me, dangerously close, its high beams stabbing into my eyes. I tried to speed up, but the other car matched my pace, as if it had a vendetta against me. Fear settled in the pit of my stomach as I realized there was no one else on the road. I grabbed my phone and called 911, my voice trembling as I described the relentless tailgater. "Help is on the way," the dispatcher assured me. "Just try to stay calm and keep driving." But the other car wasn't letting up. It continued to follow me, its presence oppressive. I turned onto a side road, hoping to shake my pursuer, but it stayed hot on my trail. Panic surged through my veins. The dispatcher tried to keep me calm, but as I drove deeper into the night, I realized I was on my own. The dirt road seemed to lead to nowhere, and dread washed over me. I begged for help, but the call dropped, leaving me in eerie silence. As I continued down the dark, narrow path, I saw something that sent a chill down my spine. An old, abandoned house loomed ahead, its windows shattered and the roof sagging. The car behind me screeched to a halt, and the driver's side door opened slowly. I had to think fast. I made a split-second decision and slammed my foot on the gas pedal, hurtling toward the decaying house. The pursuing car roared to life and gave chase, but I reached the house first. I parked my car, ran to the front door, and pounded on it, desperata for refuge. The door creaked open, and a stranger pulled me inside. I turned to see the driver of the other car, a wicked grin on their face. I had escaped the car, but my ordeal was far from over. The stranger's eyes gleamed with a sinister light as they spoke in a hushed, eerie tone. "You thought you could escape, but you're in our domain now." I tried to back away, but I stumbled and fell. The room was filled with flickering candles, casting eerie shadows that danced across the peeling wallpaper. The stranger approached, their grin widening. "You see," they whispered, "we've been waiting for you. You're not the first to seek refuge here, and you won't be the last." The room seemed to close in around me, and I realized I was trapped. I had traded one nightmare for another, and the horrors of the night had only just begun. I'd never been a fan of driving at night, but I had no choice that evening. The deserted car park near the old abandoned mall was my only option. The dim, flickering lights added to the eerie atmosphere as I parked my car in the far corner. My heart raced, and I felt a shiver crawl down my spine. I needed to grab something from the trunk, so I reluctantly stepped out. The overhead lights went out one by one, plunging me into darkness. Panic shot through me, and I fumbled for my phone, using its light to find what I needed. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. I turned my head and squinted into the darkness. 2 red eyes gleamed back at me, and a chill shot down my spine. They were set low, like an animal's eyes, but there was something unnatural about them. I tried to dismiss it as my imagination, telling myself it was probably just a stray cat. I tossed my belongings into the car and jumped back inside. I started the engine and was about to pull out when I saw the eyes again, this time closer. They belonged to something big, something that moved with unnatural speed. My heart pounded as I hit the gas and sped out of the car park, but the sinister presence followed. It stayed just out of my headlights' reach, always lurking in the shadows. Panic gripped me, and I dialed 911, my voice shaky as I described the relentless pursuer. "Stay on the line," the dispatcher said. "We'll send an officer your way." But the car park seemed endless, the walls of the mall looming like dark sentinels. The dispatcher's voice crackled with static, and the call dropped. I was on my own. Desperation gnawed at me as I realized I couldn't outrun whatever was following me. I turned into an even darker section of the mall, hoping to lose it, but the relentless presence stayed close, now just a few car lengths behind me. My heart pounded as I took a sharp turn, narrowly avoiding a collision with an abandoned shopping cart. The creature behind me was relentless, and I had no choice but to make a final, daring move. I slammed on the brakes, causing my pursuer to screech to a halt behind me. I threw open my door and bolted out, my feet pounding the asphalt as I ran toward the mall's entrance. The heavy glass doors creaked open, and I stumbled inside, gasping for breath. The mall was pitch black, the only light coming from the moon through shattered skylights. I tried to catch my breath, my heart still racing, when I heard a low growl echoing through the empty halls. It was closer now, and the footsteps were getting louder. I frantically searched for a place to hide, my mind racing. The only option was an old storage room to my left. I ducked inside, my breath held, praying that I hadn't been heard. The growling came closer, and I could hear the creature sniffing the air. It was just outside the room now, its heavy breathing filling the air. I clenched my teeth and waited, hoping that it would pass me by. But then, the door to the storage room slowly creaked open, revealing a pair of gleaming red eyes. They stared into mine, and a wicked smile stretched across the creature's face. It whispered, "You can't hide from me." My heart stopped as the darkness closed in, and the nightmare of that night was far from over.